Hi, I'm Steffany Strange. Want to hear something scary? It wasn't Fraser's first time driving down the windy country roads, but this time it felt different. He was back in Poland to visit his parents in the town he'd grown up in. They were farmers and loved nature, and in fact, couldn't resist the tall and beautiful trees. While the place and the residents were nice enough, they were fairly traditional and certainly believed in the folklore that surrounded the area. They respected nature and they believed in the Leshy. Leshy was a spirit who ruled over the forest and animals. He despised hunters and anyone who attempted to destroy the forests. However, he would leave those alone who cared for nature and helped animals. Since Fraser's parents were farmers, they figured they were in good terms with Leshy. They even kept a massive oil painting of the god in the woods in their front foyer. As a boy, Fraser loved the whimsical painting. As an adult, he found it cringe. Why would anyone believe in some forest deity, he thought. When he decided to move to the States to study carpentry, his parents judged him, stating that Leshy would not approve. This tension was why he came back to visit so rarely. His eyes darted left and right as he drove. He couldn't make out much on the darkened road. It felt eerie without the city lights he was used to. Even the moon was heavily blocked out by the clouds. He knew when he got to his family's house, he would be safer than on the roads. When he arrived, his parents were still waiting for him. The house was full of nature. However, all of this was overshadowed by their biggest piece of decor. There it was, the painting. So detailed and lively. It looked like Leshy could jump right out of the frame. Fraser stared at it for a long time, and even though Leshy was just an oil on a canvas, he could have sworn something seemed off about it. But it had been years since he last saw it. He figured he was just misremembering. Besides, it was just a painting. The next morning, Fraser took a stroll through the old woods he used to play in. He found a beautiful set of crooked pine trees. They had the perfect U shape and bend for a pair of chairs he was making for a client. With an axe in hand, he went back to the trees to chop them down until he had enough wood. He left and got started on his project. That night, on his way to bed, he passed the oil painting. This time there was no denying the painting had changed. Leshy was now peering at him, eyes squinting in anger. He reached out and touched the canvas, desperate to prove Leshy was just a figure painted in oils and nothing more. But when he tried to pull his hand away, he couldn't. It was frozen in place. Then, as if by magic, Leshy began to move. Fraser thought it was a figment of his imagination, but the painted deity reached out to Fraser and grabbed him by the wrist. Fraser felt the sharp fingernails dig into his skin. Leshy's face contorted from rage to pleasure as Fraser's skin started to turn brown and his surroundings faded. He was no longer inside the house. All around him were trees as tall as skyscrapers. He went to look back at the painting, but there was no longer a painting. Leshy now stood before him. His rough, gray-green skin cracked and covered in moss. His large hand firmly wrapped around Fraser's wrist as his skin became darker and darker brown. Then his whole body became rigid and hard, solid and stable. When Leshy let go, he was now holding on to a branch. Fraser's face adorned the tree, but Leshy still wasn't satisfied. He released Fraser's spirit from the tree's bark and then left, leaving another tormented soul to find his way out of the endless pocket dimension. In the morning, when Fraser's parents woke up, they walked by their shrine to Leshy. They never even noticed a new tree in the background, or how pleased the deity looked. Fraser's soul was another addition to his ever-growing reminder to respect nature. If someone doesn't pay attention to the tale of Leshy, they might just be another soul waiting for their demise. To this day, locals believe Fraser's spirit is still trapped in the infinite looping forest. He hasn't stopped walking in the same endless direction, desperately hoping he'll one day escape the painting. The endless woods drove him mad. As days went on, he wished he could take it all back, but he can't. He never will. Leshy had gotten his revenge on Fraser, and now it's too late to apologize for his actions. But he's still there, counting the days, walking aimlessly, hoping for an escape that will never come.
It was a hot Dallas night when two lovers snuck out to set sail out of sight. See, their parents didn't approve, so they had to escape. This is the tale of the Lady of White Rock Lake. Racing against the dawning sun, they both prayed for luck against fate and pushed a boat into the water past the muck of White Rock Lake. See, they knew the danger, but it was the only way out. No matter the disappearances that grew stranger, getting to the roundabout road on the other shore and past the fabled Lady of White Rock Lake. We're going to do whatever it takes. Together, we'll go on the run. Running out of time, then engine stalled before beginning to hum, and she smiled as they took sail over White Rock Lake. The dark and muddy waters of White Rock Lake, where you could see the reflection of the stones, and if you looked closely among the sticks, were bones of other lovers who couldn't escape the wrath and hate of the Lady of White Rock Lake. Foolish were the lovers to ignore the lore, unsuspecting of what destiny had in store. Dark water seeped beneath their feet. A voice creeped around them from a figure that came from the deep.
You are somebody's ungrateful children.
Skin decayed and rotten, in a ripped dress this creature, a vengeful spirit of town, a betrayed mother, drowned daughter, and their lover. She was the Lady of White Rock Lake, and she was there to punish anyone who dared escape. The creature stabbed the lover through his heart.
Foolish girl, this is your fate.
As the boat sank, the lady wrapped the girl in chains and said,
You're coming with me to the bottom of White Rock Lake.
And they were never found. And through the country towns, it was said they were drowned by none other than the Lady of White Rock Lake.
AJ lived in the Dominican Republic until she was about 5 years old. She was a very imaginative child. That's what her grandmother would call her, at least, whenever AJ would start telling her stories. They weren't so much stories as they were moments, very descriptive moments in time that AJ would randomly begin sharing, like the one about her getting stuck in a tree. She described how she clawed her way up with all 4 limbs like a cat, and how she could hear people yelling her name down below. She could describe in detail all of the houses on the block, and how they looked in a blur as she fell towards the ground. She had another story where she was swimming in the Pacific Ocean, a place she had never been, and yet she could remember all of the buildings that lined the shore, how the water felt, how the pier looked from the ocean, and how peaceful everything was underneath the water. Now, how can you say these things when you've never been to the Pacific Ocean? Her grandmother asked her one day. I have, Grandma, AJ replied. She pointed to her head. In here. Suddenly it clicked. Her grandma realized that AJ may not actually be making any of these experiences up, but instead recalling past lives. This is a very real phenomenon among young children. They recall memories that they couldn't possibly have experienced themselves. Like one case with a little boy in Oklahoma. He would constantly yell, "Action!" as if directing a movie. He'd have dreams where his heart exploded while he was living in Hollywood. He talked about owning a big house with a swimming pool. His mother ended up borrowing a bunch of old books about the history of Hollywood to see if she could jog her son's past life memory. And sure enough, he pointed to a man in a photo, an actor named George Raft, and claimed that was him. His mother tracked down the man's daughter, who was able to confirm all of the boy's experiences to be true. AJ's grandmother had known about this phenomenon and was pleasantly surprised to know that her granddaughter had the gift. The only thing that didn't exactly add up was how inconsistent her stories were. Sometimes she was a man, sometimes she was a young girl, sometimes she wasn't a human at all. AJ's grandmother then came to the conclusion that she might be remembering the past lives of other people. AJ's grandmother never discouraged her from sharing experiences when they came to her. She actually enjoyed them, and she was sad to see AJ go when she moved to the United States to be with her mother, Monica. Her grandmother traveled with her and, upon arrival, told Monica about her daughter's special gift. But Monica didn't believe her. "She's a kid, Mom," Monica said. "She's just making stuff up. It's what kids do." After moving to New Jersey, AJ didn't share as many experiences as she used to. Maybe it was because she was 5 now, and studies have shown that that's the average age when children stop recalling past memories. Many believe it's because that's when children start to develop memories of their current lives. Or maybe AJ was really hamming it up for her grandma. Whatever the reason, AJ wasn't as imaginative as she used to be. For about a couple of months, at least. Monica had a really close friend named Kim. They had been friends for a very long time, and AJ thought of her as the older sister she never had. Kim would often babysit AJ while Monica was at work. One day, Kim and AJ were feeding ducks at the nearby park. Out of nowhere, AJ started crying. "What's wrong, sweetie?" He burned you." "What? Who did?" "Tracy." "Who's Tracy?" He was angry you left him. He spit on you and threw gas at you. He held you down and put a lighter to your face. You screamed as you melted." Kim's face turned from worry into anger. "Do you think this is funny? Are you trying to scare me? Why would you say such horrible things?" "I'm sorry." Kim immediately took AJ home after that. When Monica came home from work, Kim told her about the upsetting things her daughter had told her. "Oh, AJ," Monica sighed. "I thought you were done with these stories." "I was just telling her what I saw." Kim had moved to another state shortly after. It wasn't until 5 years later that AJ saw her again. It was Christmas, and Kim arrived with a ton of gifts for AJ. They had both forgotten about the awkward incident at the park, and everything felt just as it was before. AJ happily fiddled with her light bright in the living room while Kim and Monica were catching up in the kitchen. She overheard that Kim had been living in Tennessee with this guy she met, Tracy. Wait, why did that sound so familiar? AJ's ears perked up, and she scooted closer to the kitchen to eavesdrop. "I had to get out of there. His moods were so unpredictable, his drinking was getting worse. I just never felt safe in that house." "You're safe now. You know that you can stay here if you need to." "Oh, no. I don't want to impose, please. I'm staying at the motel across town. I'll be fine." "Okay, well, I'm always here for you." "Thank you." The next morning, Monica texted Kim to make sure she was okay. "Everything's great. Thanks again for being there for me," read a text from Kim. A week had passed, and Monica hadn't heard from Kim again. She thought maybe she'd worked everything out with her boyfriend, or maybe she'd found a new place of her own. Monica and AJ were eating breakfast. Monica was scrolling through her Facebook newsfeed. She almost choked on her food. I don't believe it. Kim is dead." "How did she die?" AJ asked. "She was burned." Wait. All of this sounded familiar. Why did this sound familiar? Monica thought about what Kim had told her 5 years ago. She thought about what her mother had told her about AJ's ability to see past lives. She was starting to think that maybe It wasn't the past she was seeing. Monica stared at her daughter, who burst into tears.
I tried to warn her, Mom.
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.